Welcome back, my friends, to another bone-chilling episode of Mr.Terror Tales. Tonight, I invite you to step into a world where shadows twist and dark forces lurk, waiting for those who dare to summon them. Tonight's tales will take you deep into the realm of demons and despair, where souls are condemned to an eternity of torment. 3 souls forever trapped in the grip of evil, unable to escape their fate. As you listen, remember this. Sometimes the worst prisons are not made of iron bars, but of terror so deep that you can never escape your own mind. So turn off the lights, sit back, and prepare for a journey into the darkness, because once you hear these stories, you may wish you had stayed in the light. Our first tale begins with a man who thought he knew better. Dylan Hayes was a skeptic. He scoffed at the tales of ancient spirits and dark rituals. He believed that the supernatural was just folklore, nothing more than stories to scare children. But one fateful evening, Dylan's stubbornness led him down a path from which there would be no return. It was an old, forgotten chapel on the outskirts of town, overgrown with ivy, its stone walls cracked and decayed. Dylan had been exploring the woods when he stumbled upon it, its decrepit doors hanging open as if inviting him inside. Curiosity overcame him. What harm could there be, after all, in poking around an abandoned building? Inside, the air was thick with dust, and the silence was overwhelming, broken only by the occasional scuttle of rats or the faint creaking of the wooden floorboards beneath his feet. But there, in the center of the room, was an altar. It was covered in an ancient cloth worn by time, with strange symbols etched into its surface, and lying upon it, a book, thick and bound in a dark, leathery material that seemed to shimmer with an unnatural sheen. Dylan reached for it, his fingers trembling with an inexplicable desire. As he opened the pages, an eerie chill filled the room, and the air seemed to grow heavy. The whispers began, quiet at first, but then growing louder, more insistent. They spoke in an ancient language, one he couldn't understand, but still, he could feel them crawling into his mind. Before he could close the book, a voice, not of this world, boomed in the chapel. "You have disturbed me," it growled, its voice like the scraping of bones. "And for that, your soul shall be mine." Suddenly, the walls of the chapel seemed to collapse inward, the room stretching and warping like the fabric of reality itself. Shadows swarmed around him, twisting, undulating, until they formed into something grotesque. A figure emerged from the darkness. It was the demon, tall, towering over him, its skin black as night, gleaming with unnatural oil. Its eyes burned like 2 glowing embers piercing straight through his very soul. Its long fingers reached toward Dylan, and with a guttural laugh, it whispered, "You are mine now, forever." Dylan tried to scream, to run, but his body refused to obey. The ground beneath him split open, and he was pulled into it, into a realm of pure, suffocating darkness. Dylan found himself in a place beyond the physical world. A vast, empty void surrounded him, an eternal prison of his own mind. Cold stone walls rose and fell like the waves of a turbulent ocean. Every time he touched them, they vanished, only to reappear somewhere else, trapping him in an endless maze of hopelessness. The demon's voice echoed in his ears, constantly mocking, always present, always watching. Time meant nothing here. Days, years, centuries, they all bled together. There was no escape, no light, no hope. The demon tormented him endlessly, pulling him in and out of unspeakable horrors, his body never able to die, but never able to heal. No one in the town ever saw Dylan again. The chapel too vanished as if it had never been. But those who dared to wander near the woods at night would sometimes hear faint whispers carried on the wind and the sound of chains rattling in the distance. In the small, sleepy town of Riverside, there was a mansion, a grand structure built centuries ago by a wealthy man named Ezekiel Graves. He was a man of great power that came from sources no one dared question, but rumors always swirled around him. Some said he was a sorcerer. Others whispered that he had bargained with demons themselves. One night, the mansion was reduced to ashes, engulfed in flames that could not be explained. The fire raged for hours, yet there was no sign of anyone inside. The house was a total loss. Yet, there were those who swore they saw Ezekiel standing in the flames, grinning as the fire consumed everything around him. But Abigail Cole, a journalist from out of town, didn't believe in ghost stories. She was determined to uncover the truth behind the fire. Armed with only a flashlight and her skepticism, she ventured into the ruins of Graves's mansion late one evening. What she found was not what she expected. The mansion's walls had collapsed, but the air was thick with a burning heat. The ground beneath her feet still smoldered, though the fire had been extinguished for years, and all around her, strange shadows flickered in the corner of her vision. She followed a narrow path through the rubble, drawn by a strange feeling, until she reached the fireplace, the heart of the mansion. Suddenly, the temperature spiked and the ground trembled. Abigail froze, and from the shadows, the figure of Ezekiel Graves emerged, his body charred and burned, his skin hanging from his frame like melted wax. His eyes were hollow, his grin wide and grotesque. "You should not have come. Now, you're mine too." Before she could react, Abigail was consumed by the heat, pulled into the flames that suddenly erupted from the floor beneath her. But she didn't burn. Instead, she felt herself falling into a vast, oppressive heat, a place of endless fire, a prison with no escape. The air was thick with smoke, the ground scorched with endless flames, and there was no light, no hope. Abigail was trapped, her soul bound to the ruins of the mansion, forever doomed to wander the inferno, her cries lost to the flames. The mansion's fire never truly went out. It merely shifted forms, feeding on the souls of those drawn to its cursed ruins. Finally, we come to the story of Jonathan Miller, a man whose fascination with darkness went far beyond curiosity. As a child, he would spend hours in the woods at night, drawn to the shadows, comforted by their cold embrace. But as he grew older, his obsession only deepened. He grew more distant, more consumed by his desire to understand the dark forces that dance just beyond the veil of our reality. Jonathan began studying the occult, ancient tomes, forgotten rites, and forbidden knowledge. One night, as the moon hung heavy in the sky, he came across a ritual that promised to connect him with the deepest, most primal form of darkness. In the dead of night, Jonathan performed the ritual deep within the forest. He drew strange symbols in the earth, set candles around him, and offered his own blood. As the final words left his lips, the air grew still. The trees around him seemed to stop breathing. Then The ground trembled, and from the shadows, the demon appeared, a creature of pure blackness, a being with no form, only an endless void. The demon, its voice a whisper that seemed to come from everywhere. You called, and I have come. But what you seek is not knowledge nor power. What you seek is oblivion. Before Jonathan could respond, the demon reached out with its dark tendrils and enveloped him. The world around him vanished, replaced by an endless expanse of shadow. Nothing but a crushing, suffocating void. There were no sounds, no shapes, no light, only the sensation of falling endlessly. Jonathan was trapped in eternal darkness, his mind slowly unraveling as the demon's whispers filled the emptiness. Time was meaningless. There was no hope, no escape. Jonathan Miller, once a seeker of the dark, became a prisoner of it, a shadow himself, forever lost in the abyss, a place where nothing exists but fear and silence. 3 souls condemned to live forever in the darkness, bound by the demons they thought they could control. A warning of those who reach too far, who tempt fate and seek what should never be found. Thank you for joining me for tonight's horrifying journey into the abyss. If you enjoy these tales, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because in this world, sometimes the only way out is to face the darkness. And remember, always stay terrified. Subscribe for more terror.